Thank you very much, Emilia, and thank you also for the opportunity of joining you here today. I've got a few slides which you are welcome to put up. So here you can see just African City Food Month. It's the first time that we, in partnership with FAO and RUAF, and hopefully also in future with ICLEI Africa and others, will be hosting this month on an annual basis. It's a provocation month, really, to just collect wonderful stories, wonderful experiences, latest science, latest statistics, latest initiatives on how we as Africans relate to food as we are urbanizing and as we are dealing with the many urban challenges related to sustainable development. And if we can move to the next slide, you will see that really the topic of that slide is systems, food systems. I think many of us actually did speak about the complexity of food, the food value chain, all the different players in it. So it's very important that it is viewed at the territorial level, at the city region scale, but also that we view it in its entirety as a system, and that we also think about waste and waste management. We've heard how much food gets wasted globally, and in Africa, where we suffer vast amounts of poverty and informality and a lack of access to decent and nutritious food, that wastage is simply not acceptable, and we can address it. So it's important to know that here in Africa, we have a lot of informality in our cities, and both economically and physically. So the economic informalities lead to a lot of opportunities and innovation that we see happening during this time of COVID-19 as well. Africans, I think, like everywhere, and I want to say the whole food community really is such a wonderful community to be engaged with, because the discussions are always so warm and familiar, you know, in a family context. And I think it's because food connects us all so deeply with nature on the one hand, but also for our daily nutrition, hearts and souls and bodies. And I think it's this innovation that we also see coming through here in our cities. South Africa, as you may know, is in Africa the epicenter of COVID-19 right now, and we see tremendous outpouring of kindness and sharing, people just naturally coming together and creating community action networks where they distribute food and share in informal settlements and through our cities and through our national governments. It's also a fantastic way of showing the power of multi-level governance and all the different levels of governments coming and working together. We see this also not just in South Africa, but also in cities like Freetown. And then the use of IT and technology in the African way. We've got borders, you know, our famous motorbike taxis that have just come together in many of our cities, in Uganda, for instance, where they bring market vendors closer to customers, because that's become a real problem under lockdown and restrictive movement aspects. And then even public buses have come to the party in places like Addis Ababa, bringing our vendors closer to our food. We can move to the next slide, where I really want to just say that it is important, we all know this, that cities need to be part of shaping our food systems for the future, making sure that they are resilient, and local governments really need to be part and parcel. They need to be at the table, they need to listen, but also be listened to, Emilia, as you also always say. And then it's very important that we need to become part of the discussions about finances, distribution channels, etc. And then, yes, COVID-19 is a tragic event unfolding in our world today, and who knows what the future is going to look like for us. But it also has been catalyzing innovation. We have been busy with resilience strategies, both climate resilience and other resilience strategies in our cities and towns, and disaster risk response planning, and already food policy processes. But we've seen that with COVID-19, these issues have become all the more real and relevant and urgent. And we see innovation happening in front of our eyes in mainstreaming some of these policies and putting them into practice on the ground. My next slide actually just mentions a few of the links, and I'm not going to go into all the details here, but there's so many links that improved food systems can make to all the other SDGs and all the other global agendas that we're dealing with. And you're right. For me, the top one, of course, is the regeneration of nature and the connection of nature. How many of us, and many of us have said it today again, have lost that connection of where food comes from. And it's such a simple thing to just be reconnecting with the sources of food and the way we cook now, the time we spend indoors, etc. But it also addresses climate change in very, very powerful ways. And yes, there's great need for alignment in both nature, climate, and equity. And let's not forget the social aspect of it. We can address better quality food. We can address both stunting of growth and obesity through improved diets and food cultures. And never is the time more pertinent than right now, when people are mindful of being healthy and being conscious of what they eat and where they buy it. And let's maybe think about a glimpse of the future. Are we going to, we've heard from many cities that maybe big, large shopping malls are not going to be so popular, and that you're going to go back to your local producer and a neighborhood type of lifestyle. And now that many of us see that it's not impossible to work and function productively remotely, maybe we could even at a territorial level think about regeneration of our villages and towns surrounding our big cities, and actually boosting small and local suppliers and bring those back into the market in viable ways. And fantastic way to address gender-based violence, which is very prevalent in parts of Africa, also in my country. Our president calls it the second pandemic that we are facing at the moment. And this relates to how people gather food, firewood, how they cook, how much time they spend collecting water, all these things that lead to gender-based violence and gender inequalities that can be addressed through improved and more rigorous food systems. I just want to invite everybody to join us during this Food Month. We launched just yesterday, and the next slide, which is my last one, if you can move on, gives you just a glimpse of some of the events that will be taking place. And you are most welcome to join any or all of these webinars. The next one is on the 7th of July, and it's specifically going to focus on food, climate, and COVID-19. And we're going to be hearing from a lot of cities from across the continent, and you're most welcome to join, share your stories, follow us on the social media, and become part of this monthly movement, which we hope will become an institution across the planet. And we would love to see ICLEI Africa joining us from even this year onwards, but also going into the future. And how lovely to work with FAO and RUAF as our partners already this year. So thank you very much, Emilia.